Hello and welcome to the Hancock Hotel in downtown Findlay for the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame induction interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery and I'll be talking with all of this evening's inductees about their memories and careers as part of Hancock County history. Hello, welcome to the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame inductions. I'm Tim Montgomery with our interviews for tonight with tonight's inductees, and starting off with our first inductee, Brad McVetta, open water swimmer, amongst other things, and we're going to try to talk a little bit about all of that, Brad. But let's start at the top. Let's talk about when you found out you were being inducted. I'm always curious as to people's feelings when they get that call, when they get that contact.
Yeah, so I received a contact and call about it, and I was really surprised. I mean, from New York, swimming and doing all these things, traveling around the world, to realize that people were watching me back from my hometown and really actually following my swimming and seeing what that was. I was like, oh wow, because I wasn't expecting it at all, that people were really following what I was doing. Of course, there's social media, but again, I wasn't thinking much about it. And I was like, oh wow, that's fabulous. Thanks, what an honor. Yeah.
Very cool. Of course, we're going to get to the swimming in some more detail in a moment, but if you go back in youth, you were involved in a lot of sports, played football, basketball. I believe you were all conference in football your senior year, if I'm not mistaken, and also ran some track, I think.
Yes, yeah. So I was involved with sports all my life as a kid. Just something my parents and family were always involved with and getting us to participate in baseball. And so we just grew up in that environment. And I guess I just learned to swim at an early age. That was something my mom pushed, but I never thought anything about swimming at that point. I wanted to be a football player, I suppose, when I was younger. And the athleticism of it, stuff carries over from sports to sports, and not realizing it until much after, when I get involved in the swimming, how much all that stuff mentally and or physically, contributes to, what my success also be.
Well, and you obviously played high school football for one of the legends in the state of Ohio, Spike Berry. Talk a little bit about Spike, and you talk about things carrying over. What's a lesson you took from Spike?
Well, there's a lot, but obviously he's a great coach and always has enthusiasm. But beyond just coaching football, there's one aspect that he always emphasized, how things carried forward in life in terms of sport and how principles and stuff apply outside of the sport realm. I think one of the key things, I think it may be one of his favorite poems is, I think it's titled "The Man Who Thinks He Can." Sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks. And a lot of times that was mentioned in speeches and stuff through him, but it's really the truth. At some point you have to judge what you want to do, and if you believe it long enough and work towards it, you can achieve things.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, how a young man in Mount Corey, Ohio ends up being an open water swimmer, because as I said to you before, I don't know that Ottawa Creek is exactly an inspiration for long distance swimming.
Yeah, it's really been a journey that I didn't see coming in terms of swimming. I just, circumstances as they were, I eventually moved to New York, and I found myself looking for a place to swim just to train because I was doing some triathlons at that point and had learned about a swim around Manhattan Island. Like, okay, well that could be something to do. I don't know that I could swim 28 miles around Manhattan Island. The longest I'd swum was maybe a couple miles. And then there's temperatures associated with water. It's like, I've never swam in like cold water really. But I just kind of jumped in. It's like, okay, I think I can do this, and just set my goal for the next year to try to get into this Manhattan swim, and then it just took off from there.
So you mentioned triathlons. Talk a little bit about how you get down that, because that's not a normal sporting venue that a lot of people track down.
Right. So I was swimming locally at YMCA in Lima, and a guy approached me about doing the swim leg for the triathlon. And he was going to talk to his team captain, I guess. And during that week, I never heard back, but I was telling a coworker about it. It's like, well, if you want to borrow my bike and still do this full triathlon, you can. And so that just, I said, well, okay, I'll give that a try. And I did a triathlon. And so then it's like, okay, I can do that. Let me try to do another more, and increased it to where I did an Ironman just before I moved to New York. But all of that was just do a little bit more. Like every day, it's just like, I just got to do a little bit more. And it sort of became a principle in sort of the whole swimming thing also. And I took that mentality to the swimming when I approached this idea of, well, how do I suddenly swim around Manhattan 28 miles? Well, I'll just start today and just start swimming a little bit more each day. And that's kind of been part of the principle and how I achieve things.
So 28-mile swim there, that's, I believe, the longest of the three of the Triple Crowns in that. And then the one I think everybody's familiar with is the English Channel swim. Talk a little bit about that. You did just under 15 hours.
Obviously, the English Channel, it's the one most people would recognize. It's sort of the standard. It has a lot of aura to it in terms of the legacy of that when Captain Webb first swam, and then swimmers since then. Ironically, that was the first swim I was enrolled to do. So when I was looking to do Manhattan, there's a sort of a qualifying process. And so I start researching people who were doing this and how that, and I see that they all swim the English Channel. And I sort of knew if I had success swimming around Manhattan, I would want to swim the English Channel at some point, but I couldn't fathom training for one and then possibly waiting 2 or 3 years before I'd be able to swim the English Channel, just because of the logistics of how long it might take to get your slot to swim. And so I just called up some captains, and like 2 days later, it's like, I have a cancellation for next year if you want to take it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm looking at my bank account. Can I give this guy some money or not? And just the whole idea of sending money off to the English Channel captain. And it's like, well, this is what you think you want to do. Let's just go for it. And so I was actually enrolled in the English Channel before I got into the Manhattan swim. And it's like, what am I undertaking? It was a little bit of, okay, well, you're getting yourself into it. You better be fully committed. But in terms of the swim itself, I mean, like I said, there's just this aura about it. So there's kind of some pressure then at that point. It was the last one of my Triple Crown at that point. And so the water is this beautiful green, so it's all this mystique and stuff to it. But it's the most challenging of the three that we mentioned typically for most people. Of course, it always varies. But it was a lot of experience in meeting people and stuff when I was there that, really set forth, the whole next 10 years or so of swimming for me.
I think a lot of people hear about swimming this or swimming that, and they may appreciate 20 miles, 22 miles, 28 miles, but I don't think they appreciate the additional levels of difficulty that doing it in open water brings. Yeah,
so people may think, oh, like, you're like a Michael Phelps. Like, no, not a Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps would in a race, I would swim to the length of the pool and he'd already be back at that point. Speed's different, but he probably also wouldn't necessarily be able to go out and swim the English. He could, but he would have to train and adjust for it also if he even desired to do that. There's differences with water temperatures and lots of environmental factors. People get scared because they can't see the bottom of anything. And I suppose maybe that's part of why, coming from Ohio, it didn't scare me because I'm swimming in dirty ponds with seaweed growing up and stuff like that. So no big deal for me. It's a little frightening when you swim through a bed of kelp or something like that, and it feels like you're just going to get pulled under. But sort of that fear is different. But then there's the whole nuance of water that's just always undulating and stuff, and it's a natural feeling. And if you get into it, it kind of has a soothing effect that's different than just swimming in a pool. You kind of connect with nature, and I suppose there's an added feeling or sense that comes out of that's satisfying.
Well, let's finish up, and it kind of reflects back on my Coach Barry question earlier. Mm-hmm. As you said, you've been an athlete your entire life. Talk about what athletics has given to you.
Wow. In so many ways, everything. In terms of what it actually led to me eventually getting into swimming, it changed my life and changed my worldview as I'm now got this much bigger vision that took me around the world to various different spaces, meeting many different people, and sort of athletics was a driving factor behind that. The swimming, was obviously huge, but as I mentioned before, the principles and just staying fit and active, all that stuff, then carries over into my professional environment. People view me differently because I'm doing the things that I'm doing, and it impacts everything in so many ways.
Brad, thank you very much for sharing that. Certainly words for people to live by. Congratulations again. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you very much.
All right. That's Brad McVeigh, our inductee, one of our inductees today. We'll be back with more in the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame induction interviews right after this. Welcome back to the Hancock Sports Hall of Fame 2024 induction interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery, pleased to be joined by Findlay High School and Moorhead State standout Jim Brockman. And Jim, let's go back to the beginning of this process. Talk a little bit about how when you found out you were going to be inducted, I was curious to how the feelings and maybe the memories that stirred up for you.
Well, when I first got the call, it was like, are you sure? I mean, I don't know that I'm deserving of this honor. And they assured me, yeah. I said, well, I didn't really contribute much in my high school years. They said, well, that's not what it's all based on. It's based on the entire work that you've done, and you've done well at Moorhead State University. I said, well, okay, I accept.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about those. You were on some really good teams, though, Jim, at the end of the day, and an integral part, especially your junior and senior years. But let's go back to the beginning. Baseball. What made baseball special for you?
Well, my dad. He taught me everything I knew. He was my number one fan, and he used to play fast pitch softball, and I'd go with him and throw the big ball around a little bit when I was 7 and 8. And I just really loved it. And we had a basement in my house growing up, and I had a rubber ball that was about the same weight as a baseball, and I used to sling it against the wall all winter and just field ground balls and pretend to turn double plays. I'd throw it to one wall, catch it, throw it to the other wall, catch it again. And it's just something I really enjoyed doing. My dad threw me batting practice a lot. He got a catcher's mitt and practiced me pitching and just taught me about ground balls, how to field them appropriately, pop-ups, how to go back on them early. And it's just something that I kind of fell into. It was natural.
Well, you kind of alluded to my next question. And these days, baseball, like every sport, is a year-round event. You got kids playing fall ball and spring ball and indoor with these field houses and stuff. Talk about your baseball experience. You kind of talked about there working out in your own basement, kind of working the game up yourself. But was it a year-round kind of a thing for you guys even back then?
No. Whatever season was in, that's what I was into. Basketball come in, and I'd go outside and shoot baskets. And in the snow, in the rain, whatever. And football, I even tried football a little bit, even though my size was not conducive to that. I played till I was 12, and then 7th grade year I played, and the uniform was just way too big. The only asset I had in football was quickness and speed, and the uniform negated all that. So the baseball was really just summertime. You know, you started early, and bad weather, like I said, in the wintertime, I did throw the ball a lot. And I think that helped me develop my arm, because I had a pretty good arm.
I know you didn't feel like you were a great high school player, but what point did you feel like you were a good player, that baseball could be a vehicle for you?
Well, Dick Barron and Jimmy Barron, they coached the American Legion team. When I was 16, I was on the team, but they said, you know, you need a little more seasoning, you go play Acme ball. And so I'd go play Acme ball, and then I'd come to the Legion team and play a little bit with them. I didn't get to play a lot with them at that point, but when I was 17, they said, you're going to be our starting shortstop. And so I said, okay. And, you know, we had great group of guys. I mean, unbelievable. In fact, everybody on that team that started got a college scholarship, an athletic scholarship. Now, not all in baseball. Of course, you had Kenny Brooks, basketball, and you had Roger Syme, but the rest of them were pretty much all baseball scholarships. And so I got acclimated into, I usually batted second because I was a good bunter. Terry Moore led off. He's a great leadoff hitter, really fast. And if he got on, I was supposed to advance him. And so I bunted and he'd advance. And then, you know, when nobody was on base, I got to swing, and I ended up showing him that I could hit too. And so Jimmy Barron really got me started, and he got me to MSU as well.
Well, Jim Barron, that's a name, but another name that you played for, of course, Woody Curlis is the name everybody talks about. Talk about Coach Curlis and his impact on you.
Well, Woody made me work harder because I was pretty confident. I felt like I could have played, at least more my junior year than I did. But he made me work harder. So I guess that incentive that he gave me said, I'll show you I'm going to be a better player than you think I can be. And, you know, my senior year, we talked about the weather a little bit outside, Jim and I did, and we were 5-2 going into the tournament. That's all the games we'd played.
Right.
I mean, weather kept us off the field. And so, you know, 7 games, and then you're starting your tournaments right away. We didn't have everything going for us. And consequently, we didn't get as far as we should have. But, yeah, Woody Curlis, he had a magic touch with putting the players in, shifting them around, and making the right moves, and it all working out.
Talking about right moves, he made a right move in '71, the state championship game. Late in the game, you're the guy they bring in on the defensive side of things to make sure you can close it up, so to speak.
Right. And he, I don't know if you know Carl Wirtz, he's a left-hander. He went in as catcher because somebody pinch hit for Kenny Brooks, and we had to have a catcher, and he was the guy.
So from Findlay High School, Morehead State University, you mentioned Jim Barrett had a little part in that. I was going to say, what got you to the Eagles?
Well, Jim Barron was going to be a senior, and my 18-year-old year, I had a pretty good Legion season as well, and he said, I want you to come down to MSU and be the shortstop. I'm the second baseman. I said, well, that's a big honor. You know, he's going to be a senior second baseman. He said, yeah, the guy we got coming back, he's just not going to make it. He said, I'm going to introduce you to Coach Allen and tell Coach Allen that you can play, Sonny Allen, the head coach at MSU. And I went down and visited. Sonny Allen said, you know, we got a partial scholarship available for you if you want it. I said, okay, I'll be here.
Well, certainly a good choice as starter 4 years, all conference multiple times, and then you look back now, you talk about another honor, the OVC 75-year team. You're one of the shortstops on that 75 team.
Right. It's like I said, when I talked at the beginning, it's kind of an unbelievable thing. It's a great honor and deserving. Who's to say? You know, I feel humbled at all of that.
Talk a little bit about the impact long-term baseball and athletics in general has had on your life?
Well, I felt like I was always a person that would do what it took for the team to win. You know, I'm a team player. I want to do what I can that will make the team be successful. I go back to the bunting, you know, bunting the guy around, making the plays in the field, you know, just doing my part. You know, making sure I didn't make any silly mistakes, always thinking ahead. You know, what if the ball's hit to me? What am I going to do with it? What's the best thing I can do? So, camaraderie, you know, working with other people. My sons both played baseball and basketball. My oldest son now is coaching a traveling team. He has 3 boys, so I have 3 grandsons, 5, 7, and 9. And so far, they're doing pretty well.
Well, Jim, I know you're not sure you deserve it, but we're all pretty well convinced you do. We appreciate your time. Congratulations on your induction.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, you're watching the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame induction interviews. Welcome back to the Hancock Sports Hall of Fame 2024 induction ceremonies and interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery. Pleased to be joined by our next inductee, Karen Ken Fox. And first off, Karen, congratulations on induction. And I'm curious is when you got the word that you were being inducted, what was your reaction or what were your thoughts?
I was actually, when Cindy called, I was speechless, which doesn't happen, you know, quite so often. And then the other thing that happened, I thought, oh no, you know, where are my stats, you know, to prove that I'm worthy of this honor? And that wasn't a problem to find that, to do that.
Oh no, you worthy is not hard to figure out. I spent a lot of time looking into your past. A tremendous diversified athletic career, especially in your high school years, and then you take it on from there. Let's start early on. What first drew you to athletics?
Well, I had an older brother, 2 older brothers, that we would play basketball and anything else in the barn. And basically my brother Phil taught me how to shoot, and I would always play against them. And then in school, we really weren't allowed to play basketball. We had no formal teams until I was in high school, when Title IX started to kick in, and they started to provide programs for the girls.
Well, 12 varsity letters in high school amongst multiple sports. Basketball, of course, at center stage of that. We'll talk more about that. But an impressive volleyball career as well as 2 times all-conference, leading serving percentage, a league title in volleyball as well. On top of that, 4 letters in track. Did you find some time to do anything else? I mean,
it was really, really, really fun. You know, the girls, the first state track meet was my freshman year. In the spring, and we were able to run in it in the mile relay, and then the first volleyball and basketball state champions were my sophomore year. They came into par, so everything was really new to us. But Riverdale provided really good coaches that worked with us and tried to honor Title IX and bring the girls' programs up to where the guys were. And I don't have to always say that it was just the women coaches that kind of stuck their neck out, because I remember we had 2 male coaches. I had 4 coaches in 4 years in basketball, and 2 of them were men, and they were very enthusiastic, and very proud of the girls' sports.
Well, and on top of the athletics, I make the joke about time, but you were also an outstanding student as well, salutatorian in your senior year, really living up to that title of student athlete.
Yes. I really enjoyed reading. I knew I was going to go to college anyway, but at the time, sports, there weren't very many scholarships being given in sports, and recruiting really isn't the way it is now with all the social media. So if you were going to be seen, it was going to be in the state tournaments and camps near the universities. I was quite fortunate that my coach my senior year in our 8D took me down, which I didn't even know where Miami was. Drove me down to 2.5 hours down to Miami for a tryout. And the next fall, I was on the varsity.
Well, let's get back to Miami in a moment. I want to talk about that senior basketball season. You capped off a career just under 1,000 points, I think 972 points. You
Yes.
guys win a conference title. And
Yes.
I think one of the things that gets lost in that 972, you guys didn't play as many games as the kids play these days.
Right. I think I had 52 games. I had 10 my freshman year, and maybe 11, and then 13 and 15. I think we were 13-2 my senior year, which was also shortened by the blizzard of 1978. So, yeah, I didn't have. It never bothered me though. We laugh when I see everybody that gets 1,000 points now, and somebody said, "Couldn't you have just, got a couple more?" And I said, "Well, it really didn't matter." Because I was never very conscious of how many points I had. The girls I played with, we were all pretty united front that we just wanted to win.
Well, you mentioned the other players on the team. Talk about your teammates a little bit and that idea of team unity. Some of the other inductees have talked about that camaraderie and the support aspect of things.
Oh yeah, I think that's the main thing. Going through all the athletics that I've gone through, that is the common thread. Vicki Boos Brand and Judy Walters-Fox and Sandy Paget Musgrave. I mean, we still keep in contact. And none of them, we were very cohesive. Nobody's parents crabbed, to the administration about who should be getting more playing time. We never heard about it. And we never all talked about who had more points or who got all conference and things like that. And it was a time where it was truly fun. And people were very happy for each other when they scored.
You mentioned the tryout that got you the opportunity at Miami of Ohio. You certainly took well advantage of that. As you mentioned, a 4-year starter, but again, that senior year was a little extra special.
Right. I always have to try to explain that in Division I basketball, I never started every game because most of us didn't. It was so competitive that if you got to start, there were times when all of a sudden, I hate to say in the doghouse, but if you didn't perform up to a certain standard, someone else was waiting in the wings to take your place. And we were discussing how I'd never probably attribute to my parents that I can't ever remember during college thinking or plotting or planning that who did I want to try to replace. We just all worked very, very hard just to contribute to Miami basketball. And again, we were happy for each other.
We'll talk about the shot. I want to hear about the shot that sends you guys, as I understand, a conference title and then sent you to the NCAA tournament.
And what's really cute is that how I've corresponded with my teammates since, and that's what they call it. We had a reunion 10 years ago, and they were all, the shot. And the best player on our team, she was the first woman inducted into Miami's Hall of Fame. That's what she, on an interview, said, that what she remembered most about her collegiate career was the shot, and when Karen took the shot. She was the one that told me to take it. I always took the ball out. I had started that game, but I can't really remember a lot about it, but I remember at the time with about 4 or 5 minutes to go, I wasn't playing. And then my coach would tell me later, she said, I just sat there and thought, you will net. She watched one girl miss a couple, and she said, Karen won't miss at the end of the game. That was kind of my reputation. And so she put me in. And we played, and I took the ball out for our point guard, and she said, take it if you have it. And, I hoped she was serious, because I did. And I was talking to Chris earlier that everybody was so happy afterwards, but we were happy for each other. There was nobody, and my coach came up to me at the end, because I had been a walk-on. And she said, if there's anybody that was going to get to take that shot and make it, she said, I'm glad it was you. And I told my husband later, I said, that was probably the highlight of my career, that, that was recognized, that how hard it is to work from a walk-on. And I started games every year. That was the nature of the beast in the last 10 or 12 of my senior year. But it was a great time to be involved in women's sports.
Like a lot of outstanding athletes, you decide to give back. You become a teacher, and you also do quite a bit of coaching, and you come back to your alma mater.
Yeah, I thought for those of you who could remember Welcome Back Cotter,
Yeah.
That's what I thought of. Here I go, back at Riverdale, which I was really happy to, and everybody was really, really supportive. I remember my old coach, after he saw me in the study hall, said, "Oh, you're a little bit more forceful than you were before." He said, "That must have been basketball." And I said, "Well, yeah, maybe a little bit." because it's all about teamwork.
Absolutely, teamwork indeed. Well, thank you very much for your time, Karen, and congratulations again on your induction.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back with more of the Hancock Sports Hall of Fame 2024 induction interviews in a moment. Welcome back to the Hancock Sports Hall of Fame 2024 induction interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery, pleased to be joined by Jerry Blevins, Arcadia High School graduate, the proud son, so to speak. And Jerry, let's talk about when you received word of your induction. I'm curious as to your reaction when you got that word.
Yeah, surprised and honored. You know, it's not something that you think about as a possibility, especially at this point. I'm retired a couple of years. I'm a father of 2 young boys, so I barely get time to think for myself anyway. So I think I was in Kroger, probably shopping, grocery shopping, and Dean Kirian called me and let me know. It was pretty, like, it's an honor that I didn't even think that was out there. And I was aware of it, but at least me, I never thought about, I wonder if I'm going to get into the Hall of Fame. It caught me off guard, and I feel blessed and honored.
Obviously, baseball is what you're best known for, but like a lot of high school athletes, multiple sport athlete, other than the baseball, because we're going to get to that, what are some of your other memories of high school athletics? I was curious.
Yeah, I remember my older brother, Rob Ellis, who's the varsity coach at Arcadia High School baseball. He was a senior when I was a freshman. One of my favorite sports moments, regardless of big leagues or not, I got to complete a pass to him his senior year. So I came in as a freshman, couldn't see over the line. I think I fumbled 2 snaps because it was like too hard for me. And then I turned and he told me, he's like, I'm going to be over there, just throw it in that general direction. So I did. They said it, like they started clapping like he caught it. And so getting to throw, a pass to my brother in football, getting to play first base when he was a senior during the baseball season. Just a really, really fun time there.
Coming out of high school, you had a D3 offer, right? And you decided instead to go to Dayton, use an academic scholarship, and then do the tryout, kind of gambling on yourself and betting on yourself. Talk a little bit about that thought process.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was an offer for a D3 school. They said, hey, you could come play for us if you want. You can try out, like, if you come to our school. And so baseball after Arcadia wasn't ever really an option. It was always something I wanted to do, but number one was an education. And so I went with my best friend, Andy Knoll, and we were roommates, and we were like, look, we both love baseball. Let's see if we're any good and maybe play at the next level, which happened to be a D1 school. So when the poster showed up in the dorm room hallways, we decided to try out, and kind of luckily I made the team.
Well, you talk about that being good. I'm always curious for elite athletes. At what point, and maybe it was in high school, maybe it was, when did you realize, hey, I'm pretty good?
Well, I thought I was good in high school, and then I got to college and I was humbled. And that's what the beauty of baseball is. It's like, it's a humbling sport. It's a sport filled with failure. And so you have to humble yourself to have success, to understand that you're not going to be perfect. So when I got to college, I was like, there's no way. I barely pitched my first 2 years and figured some mental stuff out for my junior year. And then I had a good first year in pro ball, but it's so far away, like 6 levels away from the big leagues. I never really thought I could get there until I got to AA. And you see a guy get called up from AA, and you're like, oh, we're right there. And I remember in low A in Peoria in 2005, I was with the Cubs at the time in the minor leagues, Peoria Chiefs, and we had a major league rehab. We had Nomar Garcia-Parra come down, and we had Kerry Wood come down, and I was like, oh, they're coming down to play with us. I wanted to soak that up, and so I ended up being teammates in Oakland with Nomar for a year, which was really cool, talking to him about how much of an impression he made coming down. But I guess it was then, when you see guys that are big leaguers or guys that you played with get called up, you're like, I'm just a phone call away. So you get reinvigorated with the grind that is minor league baseball. Let's
go back to the draft. You get drafted in the 17th round, I think, as you mentioned, by the Cubs. Talk about that process, that wait, that call, all the things that go into that.
So I was surprised I got drafted that high. 17th way higher than I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anybody around that was any inkling that was going to happen. Dayton had a couple of guys drafted in years past when I was there, but it was like a senior sign in the 45th round, that kind of thing. And so that's what I expected. I expected to get drafted there. I actually anticipated getting drafted late, going back for my senior year of Dayton, and then seeing what goes on after that. And so it took me by surprise. I remember this was only on the internet. So I was playing summer ball with the Columbus All-Americans at the time, and I'm on their, my host family's computer, like going, okay, I'm thinking. And then I was like, wow, I got way earlier, and so I had no idea what to do. Eventually they gave me, an option, and it paid for my senior year of college, which I haven't finished yet, which I will. But yeah, it gave me the chance to go be a professional early.
All professional sports have player movement, but I think baseball is the one that's probably best known for it. And you certainly experienced that after a couple of years in the Cubs minor league organization. You get traded to the A's, which was kind of unique because I know that was one of your childhood favorite teams.
Yeah, that was my favorite team growing up. There's a bunch of pictures of me wearing an A's hat. So thank you to the Cubs for sure for drafting me, giving me that opportunity. For the ceremony tonight, the scout that signed me is here. He works with the Rangers now. But he took a chance on me, and so I'll be forever grateful to the Cubs. But when I got traded, it was really fast. So I started that season high A, double A, traded double A, triple A big leagues. Like, it went so fast, and it was still a whirlwind. I remember knowing more players on the other team on my debut because I had played against them guys coming up. I never did anything with the A's, being on the West Coast with most of their minor league teams. So definitely amazing to wear the green and gold, wear those white shoes. Still my favorite uniform.
Well, let's talk about the day, September 16th, 2007. I always wonder, is that one of those days that every detail is etched in your mind, or is everything such a blur because it's so many things going on?
A little bit of both. Like, I remember a lot of the goings on around it because it's, I was in Sacramento. We had just won the PCL championship. And so the guys, September call up, they get called up on September 1st. So I was like, oh, I'm probably not this year because it's blew me away. And so we're celebrating in the owner's box up in Sacramento, and the manager's like giving a thank you speech, and he's like, I got one more thing. Jerry Blevins, you're going to the big leagues. And I cried, called my family. It was like 3 a.m, East Coast, because we're on the West Coast. Took a long time to get a hold of them. Figured it out, and then the next day I'm like, how do I get there? I don't have a car. How do I get from Sacramento to Oakland? Actually, one of my teammates drove me up, dropped me off. I had to call somebody, the security wouldn't let me in. So it's kind of a blur, but that next day, I remember facing the Rangers, day game. It's something special. Yeah, I remember it.
It's a good inning, perfect inning.
It was nice to get out there and get your first guy you face, you strike out and get a clean inning and get it out of the way. It was like a breath of fresh air because I don't think I breathed for about 3 weeks before.
You go on to play for the Mets, Nationals, Braves. Again, kind of par for the course, moving around a bit. Talk about the challenge that gives to a professional athlete. I mean, you just talked about going for the minors up and how do I even get there, and the idea of your family having to move and all those sort of things.
Yeah, so early on it's easy because I'm just a kid by myself. I don't know any different. I'll figure it out because my focus is baseball. Every decision I made, from when I went to sleep, what I was going to eat, every decision for my entire career was based on how it's going to affect me as a ball player. It's very selfish, but it's also what it takes to succeed at that level. Once I got married, things changed, because now I have a wife, that I have a family now. And so when we were with the Nationals, we had already set our place going into 2015. We had our house in Arlington, lease signed, ready to go. I get traded right before the teams break camp. We have to get the lease canceled, which drags on through the season. We have to figure out a place in New York to go, which is not easy to do on last minute's notice. And we have a dog at the time, and it became more complicated, but much easier. She took all that burden off of me, and I was just literally got to just go play baseball. And while she's taking care of moving our stuff and all the grind, all the non-fun stuff she took care of for me.
That's interesting. You mentioned retirement. 2021 is when it comes down, and then you make the transition to analyst, announcer. Talk about how you go about that.
Well, it was at some point I was able to take a step back and realize that I'm not going to be playing forever. And so I had to establish myself in the big leagues, and I talked to Ray Fosse, who was with a longtime catcher. He was our analyst for the Oakland A's, so I was with him a lot. And he showed me, you know, when I look back on it, how to be on the other side of retirement and still be involved with the game. And so when I got to New York, I had a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have had doing things in front of the camera. I got to do like things with Broadway and interviews and all sorts of different things. And I found that I loved that aspect of it. And then it was a choice between doing stuff with the union, because I was a union rep for the Players Association for a long time and very passionate about being a coach, and I just didn't want that grind. So when I retired, they were about ready to go into the negotiations. Like they did COVID, and then they had the collective bargaining agreement expire and all that went with it, and I didn't want to dedicate that time with 2 new kids, didn't want to leave my wife by herself and be on the phone all day. I didn't want to coach because I didn't want to travel. Traveling's tough on a family.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gone basically 9 months out of the year. I miss everything. Having 2 kids, I didn't want to do that anymore. And so being an analyst is like that perfect, I still get the thrill of live TV, which is fun, but I get to be at home. And I just got back from a Arcadia Redskins baseball game where I got to watch my nephew pitch. I missed a lot. And I really enjoy being able to be around for those people that supported me, and also still have my foot in the game. So it's a blessing to be able to do both.
Well, we're glad to have you back home, so
Thank
to
you.
speak here, and congratulations again on the induction.
I appreciate it, Tim. Thank
All
you.
right. Jerry Blevins, we'll be back with more on the induction interviews here in the Hancock Sports Hall of Fame 2024 edition. Welcome back to the Hancock Sports Hall of Fame 2024 induction interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery, pleased to be joined by Rick Phillips, one of our inductees. And first off, congratulations,
Thank you.
Rick. And I got to be honest, I had not heard the name until I got the induction list, but incredibly impressed. Talk a little bit about when you found out, when you got the call about your induction and your response to that.
I didn't know what to think at first, and kind of a media. I moved away in 1986 from Findlay, and so I've been living in Columbus, Indiana, and Eastern Tennessee since then. And so I'd kind of lost track. I knew about it because our team got inducted in 2001, and so I looked up on the website and looked at all the previous honorees, and gosh, it's like a who's who. And so I felt very honored.
Well, your athletic journey centers, or at least starts in Van Loo.
Right.
And talk a little bit about growing up and athletics in Van Loo when you were a kid.
Gosh, you know, we every day was some sport, and it was football season, it was football, baseball season, basketball season. We played games like probably every day, sometimes sun up to sundown, and that kind of just got us all started. And then obviously playing junior high and high school, we got more involved in organized sports. But it was a great place to grow up.
Impressive career, 3-year letter winner in basketball and track, 4-year letter winner in football and baseball. You certainly didn't have to worry about your downtime. It was pretty well covered.
No, and in fact, it was we didn't really have a track team. So the reason I was able to do both is we only had 3 guys on our track team. And so we got in one of my buddy's cars and went to the track meets, and we just ran scratch. We didn't actually compete in the meets until it got to like district and sectional and county. And so then after the meet, sometimes we would have games, so we would just drive to the game. And so, yeah, it kept us busy, but gosh, if I had to do it over again, I would do the same thing.
Well, and in a small school environment, it allows for those kind of opportunities.
It does. It does. I mean, if you were I'm not even going to say crazy town. Just wanted to, you could play. I mean, you didn't have to be great because obviously you weren't competing against, like Corey Rawson sometimes would bring out 90 football players. And we ended up, I think when I was a senior, we had 16. And there was a couple games we ended up with like only 2 players on the sideline. So you kind of just had, if you wanted to, you could play, and it was fun.
Right. So you look back over those high school years. Talk about some of your memories that kind of stand out from those days.
Yeah, the big one would be the 2001 basketball tournament. We had lost a few games during the regular season, and due to injuries, but their first sectional game was against Macomb, and we had a relatively easy game, but we played Bluffton in the sectional, and they had a really great team, and we were down 4 points with 28 seconds to go, and somehow came back and won that game. And in the district, we played Arcadia, who had beaten us during the regular season, and we ended up beating them by a point. And in the sectional final, we beat Corey Rawson, who had beaten us in the regular season, and we ended up beating them by a point. And then we played Convoy Crestview in the regionals at Bowling Green, and we won that first game. And then we played Convoy Crestview in our second game, and we fell just a little bit short of going to state.
Yeah, you mentioned that team earlier. It got recognized,
Yes.
certainly by the Sports Hall of Fame here as well. Certainly great. I got to think fourth in state in track, especially when you consider it was, as you kind of put it, a little bit of an afterthought or an extra thing that you did. Certainly have to be proud of that accomplishment as well.
I was, and I remember when I was a junior, I qualified for the Lowe's, and I didn't do so. I didn't place. But when I was a senior, I was leading with 3 hurdles to go, and I hit the last 3 hurdles and kind of stumbled across the line, and I still got 4th, and I still tied my personal record.
Oh, wow.
So had I not done that, I would have set a personal record, and that would have been fun. And then in the low hurdles, I couldn't complain because I ran a half a second faster than I had ever ran in my life, and I still got 4th.
Finish an outstanding high school career. Time to head off to college. Findlay College is the choice you make. Talk a little bit about that option that you chose.
2 things. The first being that I got recruited by Bluffton and Heidelberg and Findlay about equally, and what they were offering in the way of compensation was about equal, but Heidelberg and Bluffton weren't doing so well on the football field at that time, and Findlay was, and so having come from kind of a history of not winning a lot of games in football, that appealed to me. And the second thing was both Coach Morgan and Howdeshell recruited me for football and basketball, and they said the first year I could try both and then maybe make a selection after that.
Well, then I think you also played a little bit of baseball and ran a little track in there, some of it too, while you were there, didn't you?
I did, and the next year, basketball didn't go quite how I planned, so the next year I wanted to do track, and found like track in college was was way harder than I was used to. In high school, I just practiced when I wanted to, and then they had me running 3-mile loops, and it was a lot harder, but it was still fun. And then the next year, Coach Shadle was our football defensive coordinator. He was also our baseball coach, and I thought I could play. And he asked me if I said, "How about me coming out for the team?" And he said, "Can you pitch?" And I said, kinda. And my plan was that he would see how good I was at playing one of the positions, and he would change his mind, but he never changed his mind. He made me pitch, and I was at best average. And the reason I wanted to play and bat, and the year I went to I played, they went to the designated hitter rule, and I never got to bat one time in my college career. And then the next year was just fun. It was just golf, and I was really probably not very good, but it was so much fun.
Well, and that's something special about a small school like that, is opportunities like that present themselves where
Right.
a bigger school they might not.
Right, yeah. It was great.
Well, let's talk about your football. 3.5 years as a starter for the Oilers. What is your best memory in that time?
Oh gosh, I think both my sophomore and junior year, we had really good teams. We had great offensive line, great defense. Our freshman season, we struggled a little bit, but sophomore and junior, I mean, we had really good teams. And I think we were 4-5 both of those seasons, and could have been like 7-2, or I mean, we lost a few close games, and so just getting to play and compete with those guys, because some of the guys I played with were like amazing athletes, and they were fun to be around. So that was probably my biggest memory, is just the camaraderie with the guys, and then those 2 seasons were both a lot of fun.
Well, certainly the idea behind high school and even collegiate athletics is about developing character and other skills. What do you feel like is the best thing that sports athletics gave to you?
Oh gosh, it gives you humility sometimes, because sometimes you think you're, like all that, and then you kind of get beat down a little bit. And then teamwork, obviously, and then, I think when teams do well, there's a certain, spirit or enthusiasm, and you kind of have to have that, I think, for a lot of things. And so sports taught me a lot about that.
Well, Rick, congratulations again on the induction. We appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of the ceremony.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's Rick Phillips, one of our inductees, back with more of the 2024 Hall of Fame induction interviews. Welcome back to the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery, pleased to be joined by a friend and a true asset to our community, inductee for today, Helen Stahl. And Helen, let's give people a little bit of background about you. As you're a non-typical, I guess, is the way to put it, inductee. You're more from the contribution side, and talk a little bit about your involvement with Special Olympics.
I started out as a track and field coach, which I had no clue, but they didn't have anybody, and this was 45 years ago. And then I eventually went on to become the coordinator of Blanchard Valley Center Special Olympics, which later became the Special Olympics for all of Hancock County. So.
Well, you mentioned, let's take it back to 1980. You start your journey, you take a position at Blanchard Valley Center, or I guess it was school at that time, right?
Yeah.
You had Blanchard Valley School that wasn't directly related to it, but you saw the opportunity to get involved.
Right. Actually, the lady that I was teaching with, her husband was the coordinator for Special Olympics there, and he was the one that originally got me involved, because he asked me to be a track and field coach, which I had no idea what I was doing. I never had the opportunity to do any sports myself during school.
Which is really a unique thing, but you recognized early on the opportunity this gave individuals with special needs.
Right. My whole life basically has revolved around special needs. Do I do it for recognition? Absolutely not. I absolutely love that population. After Special Olympics was done, I had the opportunity to go to New York with Gene Folgerth for Gliding Stars, which is, well, back then it was SABA, and which is now the Gliding Stars here. I was one of them that helped bring that to Findlay. That was 20 years ago. 9 years ago, I again had the opportunity to coach the Yankees with Miracle League. Am I ready to give this all up? Of course not. And I will be on the field the last Saturday of this month.
Well, let's go back to Special Olympics, because not only did you just coach, I mean, that kind of dismissed a little bit. You oversaw, then you become the director, as you said, of Hancock's County Special Olympics, and you helped introduce in a number of other sports.
Yeah.
And by bringing in another number of sports, you get more and more individuals with the opportunity to participate.
Right. We now cover all of Hancock County. I had the opportunity to go around to the schools and brought many athletes in. Had one young man from Arlington who was, because being on a IEP, was not eligible to play for their basketball team. Brought him in, and he was one of our star basketball players. We also was able to start, we already had basketball and track and field and swimming to some extent, but we were able to bring in and start unified softball. And that's where the athletes actually have a partner, a normal partner, such as yourself, that plays alongside them. And was able to go to Ames, Iowa for the very first unified softball tournament, and we took 2 of our players from that.
And you've also introduced golf since then, and I
Yes.
know bocce is underway with things, and
Yeah.
bowling, and it's just been one after another. And talk about what keeps you bringing back. You mentioned this has been going on for 45 years. What keeps you coming back?
The love for the athletes. There's nothing more exciting than to have an athlete come up and tell you, thank you. Did they enjoy getting ribbons? Of course not. We would have athletes throw the ribbons to the side, but it didn't matter to most of them they were there because they had that opportunity to be there.
Well, and you provided opportunities. You provided opportunities for a previous inductee, and that, of course, Dale Eddy,
Dale
a name
Eddy.
that everybody knows here, and you know Dale very well,
Yes.
and was his coach. And you talk about a guy who was competitive. Dale Eddy's competitive.
His swimming was quite competitive, yes.
I got to tell a quick Dale Eddy story. Dale Eddy was swimming, and my daughter was swimming Special Olympics as well at the same time, and he was competing, and his trunks came off in the middle, and Dale didn't even stop. He just kept on swimming. And then to your point, afterwards he was upset with his finish, and they gave him the ribbon, and he chucked it in
Yep.
the pool and walked away. So,
Yep.
But again, Dale excelled at the national level.
Yes, he did, yes. We had several of our athletes that excelled in bowling. Not so much track and field because that's a team effort. So that, most of that was team related, but bowling, swimming, they could go on as their own person.
You mentioned Saba, now known as Gliding Stars of Findlay, and not only were you part of getting it going, but of course you also spent several years on the board as well. Again, giving a part of the population another opportunity to shine and excel.
Right.
And then you take that into Miracle League, as you said. I'm just going to keep on rolling here, Helen.
That's okay.
You take it into Miracle League, as you said, started 9 years ago. You and your old friend, your old tromping buddy
Yes,
from the Special
yes.
Olympics Day, Kara, out
Yes.
there. And talk about, because that's a different kind of environment than, say,
It is.
Special Olympics.
Yes, it is. Miracle League, to me, gives the athletes a chance to excel where Special Olympics left off. Many of our athletes there was nothing that they could have, Tom, for instance,
Right.
there was nothing in Special Olympics that he could have participated in, but boy, he's there every Saturday, and he's part of my team. And I've been made fun of because Yankees, don't you know that Yankees isn't a really big thing in Findlay, Ohio? And I've said to them, I don't care. They're my team. I don't care what team it is, but yeah.
Well, Helen, I personally want to say thank you for all you've done for the community over these last 45 years, and I hope you got another 45 in you.
Well, I'm not sure 45, but as many as I can.
All right. Well, congratulations. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. That's Helen Stahl, another one of our inductees, and this is the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame interviews. Welcome to the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame induction interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery. Pleased to be joined by, well, if you're a University of Findlay football fan, you know the name Demeyer Wimberly. Is our team induction this year is for the 92 Oiler football team national champions. And Demeyer, first off, thanks for being here and let me go down memory lane a little bit.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, let's talk about that team. And I don't know that you can talk about any Oiler football team back in the 90s or going all the way back to the late 70s without talking about Coach Dick Strom. And I know Coach Strom has a special place in your heart. And talk a little bit about him in regards to that team.
Well, he was the key that drove that car to the national championship. He was the man that put that team together. One of the things that I'm going to talk about tonight is when I speak on the team is I've always wanted to make Coach Strom proud for coming down to Florida to get me and make me his quarterback to lead that 92 team. Coach Strom's value to that squad is just, you can't really put it in words. He was the leader, and he was more than just a football coach. He gave tremendous life lessons along with what we learned, on the field from him. So he was the conductor of that train to the national championship.
I like how you talked about putting that team together because while nowadays it's not uncommon to go get athletes from Florida and California and Texas and Illinois, in 92 that wasn't, especially at NAIA Division II, that was not the norm. So for him to show up in the Sunshine State and try to talk you into coming up to Findlay, Ohio, that was a unique thing, but he saw something unique in you.
Yes. Coach liked the way I carried myself on the field. He thought with what he saw from my film in high school that I'd be perfect to run his offense. And, I guess he was right. I came up, adapted really quickly, was able to play right away, which, at that time, that wasn't common for freshmen to be starting at anything on any level. So he made a good call, and I just happened to fit perfectly with all the other great talent that he brought in that year.
That 92 team, 12-1 overall. The one loss was to the dreaded rivals, the Titans of Westminster. And, let's go back and track that season a little bit. You guys opened up against Kentucky State, a comfortable win, 23-13. Then you blew out Lindenwood. And then handled Union and Campbellsville without too awful much trouble. But there was something about Westminster and Findlay. It was always a game, and that particular year, at least the regular season matchup, didn't go your guys' way.
The regular season was always tough. If everybody remembers back then, I remember sharing with my wife that, I never beat Westminster in the regular season, but I was 2-0 against them in the playoffs when it counted. So I always take tremendous pride in that. Yes, they were a big rival. They were our only stumbling block that season, but I think our team learned a lot from that game. I'm going to talk about us tonight in my speech being on a mission. But I think, we learned a lot from that game. Like, yeah, we want to win the national championship. We talked about it, but we had to take our game up to even another level because, unbeknownst to us, we'd be back there again much later and with much bigger stakes on the line.
Yeah, Coach Strom, I remember him telling me in that year, I interviewed him during that season one time, and he said that was the most important game that year because it showed you guys where you needed to be and what you needed to do.
Exactly. And, it's one thing to want to win it, but it's another thing to learn the lessons that are required to win a national championship. And you have to be excellent, you have to be good all the time, and you have to cut down on errors.
You ran through the rest of the regular season without too much trouble there, a pretty comfortable win over Georgetown, and then you got the rematch. And that was a battle.
Yes, it was. I don't know if people remember, but that game was played in about 1, maybe 2 feet of snow.
Oh, absolutely. The snow.
And, we were just trudging and slopping along in that mess. And I just think the biggest memory from that game was, and Coach Strom talks about it, that, 20-play, 80-yard drive that just took the heart right out of them. I took tremendous pride, along with others on the team, in the fact that, people didn't expect much of us because if you remember correctly, we had never beat it in Westminster at their place, let alone it being a playoff game.
Right.
But I remember during that drive, literally seeing the life go out of some of their players because they were tired. We used Bellawa like a sledgehammer, and he's 260 pounds. I get tired of hitting him too.
We're going to talk about those guys here in a little bit. Then you guys have another tight game with Benedictine that earns you the opportunity. And one of the things think that gets lost in your guys' win over Linfield is that was a backyard game for them. I mean, playing that up in Seattle, that was a home game for them.
I'm going to talk about that in the journey throughout the playoffs for us. But yes, that game was literally 2-3 miles from their campus. So not only did we have to deal with listening to them being the greatest show on turf, I guess. They had ran through the playoffs 30, 40 points a game. You know, they could throw it all over the place, run it all over the place. And, you know, one would have thought Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin were running out on the field that day, but that's not how it went down. We played a tremendous game. They started quick. They got a quick score. I'm sure people, and maybe some of our fans at the time were like, uh-oh, here we go. But we quickly settled ourselves down and went on to dominate the game and do what we had talked about doing that entire season.
Well, and the defense that year, and in particularly that game, I think that was your point there, is that everybody talked about them being able to do what they want, and for you guys to hold them to 13 points, and your defense got a recognition that it deserved along the way. I mean, you talk about a couple of All-Americans, Bob Heitkamp, a linebacker who I think to this day is the prototypical Findlay linebacker, and then Chris Smith up on that defensive line, and then the guy who I think gets forgotten about on that defense is Bob Sutyak. Bob Sutyak. You know, 9 interceptions and made some key plays in that game as well. But that was a very strong defensive team, and as a lot of Oiler teams have been, really led the team.
Yes, very strong defensive team. I didn't call him at the time, but as I think of him now, I think of him as Big Play Bob. Bob's interception was the one that actually sealed the Westminster game. They were strong. They were tough. Chris Smith had a huge play in that national championship game. I think they went for it on a short yardage, and I really think the momentum from that play just turned the entire game. That let us know that we're settled down. We're in it. They changed their pants just like we do. Let's go and beat this team and fulfill the mission.
For a lot of University of Findlay teams, and I would say during most of your career, I don't know that the offense ever got the credit it deserved, only because there were so many pieces. You guys divided it up so much. I mean, you mentioned Balua Walker, but you also had Jermaine Ward, Nate Sprunger in that backfield as well. As long as you guys, and you talk about coach using the different pieces, but because of that, nobody has these gaudy numbers. No, but as a unit, you guys had gaudy numbers, and that's what makes a great offensive team, because when you're preparing for a team that spreads the wealth, that you never know where it's going to come from, that makes it much harder than when that team has a superstar with gaudy numbers. It's easy to really put the focus on that player. But when you don't know if Bella was going to rush for 150 yards, I might go for 150. I might throw for 200 yards. It just all depends on what the game called for. And I think that's what made us great, was because there was no one player that the defense and the coaching staff could say, hey, if we stop Nate Sprunger or Milan Smith, we're going to win this game. You couldn't do that because you didn't know where it was coming from or who was going to have the numbers. We'll talk about another guy who maybe goes unsung, Scotty McLaughlin.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, my God.
Scotty, that year, he only had 20 catches, but he had them for 626 yards. That's a 31.3 yard per catch average. That's a ridiculous number. Talk about big play Scotty.
Big play Scotty. Just always ran great routes. I think that's overlooked. You see those numbers and you say, oh, he was just faster. No, he ran precision routes. He always caught the ball, even in practice. He had kind of like the work ethic. You hear those things about Jerry Rice, who would, even in practice, when he caught a short pass, he would still run it all the way through, and he never let balls hit the ground. Scotty had that same mentality. That mentality carried from practice to the games. Huge catch in the national championship game that helped set up our go-ahead touchdown before halftime. I can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, and when you consider the way offensive football is turned, including at the University of Findlay, for him to still be third in career yardage and third in career touchdowns says a lot about the kind of player he was.
And it just talks about his work ethic. I talked a little bit about what he did in practice, but everything that he did as far as his regimen, lifting the weights, running his routes, running in conditioning, he always did everything 1,000%. I honestly believe he would have been great if he were able to play on other teams, he would still perform well or stack up against any receiver.
Well, I know you well enough to know you're not going to brag on yourself a little bit, so I'm going to brag on you a little bit.
Okay.
In that same category as Scotty in career numbers, take a look at you, number 5 in career total offense with 5,321 yards. And again, in a day where offensive football numbers are through the roof, for you to still be in that top 5 shows the kind of leader and the kind of performer you were.
Well, it was just, I also put the time and the work in. I just didn't depend on talent. I worked hard. I wanted to be the best at what I did. I knew a lot was expected of me if we were going to win the national championship. Some doubted that we could win a national championship, but I always believed in myself, and Coach believed in me. And it's just the work ethic that was instilled in me from my family and being raised in Florida, in South Florida. So.
Well, I know that the university still has a very special place in your heart, as evidenced by the fact that you're a member of the Board of Governors of the Alumni Association. And I know that's important to you, and you are constantly preaching the values and the benefits of the University of Findlay.
Yes, the University of Findlay has a special place in my heart. Regardless of, here in a couple of years, I'll probably have a degree from UT and BG along with Findlay's. But my time that I spent at the University of Findlay will always be special to me. The people that I met, the coaches, even some of the professors, and just the people in general always made me feel welcome, always made me feel at home. And if I had it all to do over again, I'd attend the University of Findlay again.
Well, Demaya, we appreciate your time, and congratulations to you and all your former teammates on this induction.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
My pleasure.
That's Demaya Wimberlin, the 92 championship team, and are concluding our Hall of Fame induction interviews. You've been watching the 2024 Hancock Sports Hall of Fame inductions interviews. I'm Tim Montgomery, and I say thank you to all of our inductees for spending some time with us. Remember, you can check out all the details about the Hancock Sports Hall of Fame online. Until next time, I'm Tim Montgomery, and thank you.